Zen.
I'm keeping that in the episode. Vision Quest. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Vision Quest. If this is your first time, hello, welcome. How did you find this? Please let me know. I would appreciate figuring out how the algorithm sent you here. My name's Ashley Appap. I'm a writer, comedian from Melbourne, Australia. Almost forgot where I was for a moment. And if you've never seen or listened to an episode of Vision Quest before, this is a place where I talk to people that I enjoy about things that they enjoy. And that's pretty much it. It's really fun. We have some questions. The guest has their topic of choice that we talk about for the second half of the episode. And today I am thrilled. Beyond, I can't even, it's coming out of me. It's visceral to have my dear old friend, Jacob Trad, AKA YAAK, musician, superstar,
baby?
Producer, creative king. Hello.
Oh, stop it. There's too many titles for me. I don't deserve half of them. I really don't.
You
It's
do.
a
You
pleasure
deserve
to be
all of
on.
them.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And I also want to find out, to all those people that the algorithm sent through, if it is your first time, go yourself. You should have been here for every single one. That's way too aggressive. I'm sorry, everyone. But it's
Go
a
for
pleasure to be
yourself.
here.
Go for yourself, but also welcome.
Welcome at the same time,
Yeah.
Love, hate.
Yeah, exactly.
Bittersweet.
How are you? Can you tell the people who you are, what you're about, and how you're doing?
It's something that I ask myself every single night. Who am I? My name is Jacob, otherwise known as YAAK. Hopefully that's what many of you guys know me as. I'm a producer/artist from Melbourne, Australia. I make electronic music and so much more as well. I don't know why I said it like that, but yeah.
We are here today after how long do you think it's been since we've seen each other in person? I mean, that's not that bizarre to not see people in person at the moment, but
That's true.
probably
Circumstances were different as well.
Yeah.
You went off, conquered the world.
Yes, I did, but I've seen you since I think January 2019 would have been the last time I saw you.
No, that's just one little blip in the cosmic scale of time. I feel like I may have seen you once there, but it's been a long time since we've had like a prolonged discussion.
Yeah, definitely. And so just to let the people in on some classic teenage moments for us. So we met, I'm gonna reveal something very, which I may never have told you.
I'm incredibly nervous.
My very first impression of you was you were in School Musical of Oliver, and you were playing
Dodger.
Exactly. You were the Artful Dodger, and I auditioned to be in it and didn't get in, and I was so like, they're gonna rue the day. Like I was, I was heartbroken. I was like, I'm 10 years old. I have nothing to live for in this world, and I was like, you know what? Give these dummies in the production a benefit of the doubt. Like, not as good as me.
We didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve the benefit of the doubt.
You did, because your performance was phenomenal. I remember being
Thank
like,
you.
what is
Tears streaming down your face. Is this why I didn't get it?
I was like, I get it now. So much better than me. But for real, I was like, my first thing was like, didn't know anyone else. Like, we went to separate campuses just for some background information.
People who don't know how it worked.
Yeah, exactly. It's two separate campuses. In year 9 or 9th grade, you come together and then you stay together till you finish school. And so at that point, I was like, I remember being like, I don't think there's anyone else in my campus that even cared what musicals were. And I was like, This person's in my year level and they're really funny and really good at this. And I was like, okay, how many more years till year 9 so I can become friends with this person?
Dude. And for people who don't realize as well, I'm sure there's other people here that went to schools that had different campuses, but it's like, as I was at Taylor's Lakes campus, you were at Keilor, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people from the other campus were almost like myths, bro, legends. Like you spoke about them, like rumors of them carried in on the wind. Like, have you heard about person XYZ from the other campus? Like it wasn't real and like it wasn't tangible until year 9, right?
Yeah. And so this was the first glimpse into like someone liking this thing that I understood everyone else around me in that sphere of people thought was weird.
Right.
And so I was
ostracized at Taylor's Lakes campus for being into that type of stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've said it, right? Like, no, seriously, though, especially as a guy, right? That was just a no. You didn't do musical theater. That's not something that I would have benefited from your companionship earlier, but alas, we were kept apart.
We had to wait. But so sweet when we were united, because then we were in the same homeroom class in year 9.
Yeah.
And our class was the class that was just like deros. Like we were all just wild idiots. Like I'm saying that about myself too. Like we just
self-inclusive.
Yeah, we just like seemed to be like, okay, let's stop having human decency this year. And then into our last few years of school, I think where we really solidified our beautiful friendship was in year 11 and 12 drama class.
That class, so intimate, so
intimate. Literally, what, like 8 people, 10 people,
something like that. It wasn't a big class.
And just like, okay, to give you guys a snippet of like the cheekiness of Jacob, especially at that time, I have a gauge. If you see here, I have a little gauge hole in my ear, and multiple occasions, Jacob came up to me when I was not expecting it with his lock from his locker and locked it into my ear hole and ran away.
About that. I actually forgot about that.
And those days I would be walking around school just like, but also like laughing because I was like, classic us, classic.
If you weren't so understanding, that is just some textbook bullying, right? Like,
but clearly we'd both been bullied in the past, so this was our way of like expressing like love with just continuing that cycle, you know. We would also, do you remember?
Oh, that's funny.
I think more so me than you. I've talked about this with my dear friend Jeremy Dutra, who was on the podcast, who you know as well.
Yeah. Shout out Jeremy.
When we were younger, I used to just randomly grab him from behind and choke him to the floor, which is not okay. But we had a thing every now and then, I think, in drama class, I remember, where I would just randomly come up to you and see if, because you can't tell if you're watching this right now or listening, but Jacob's very tall and has very long, like, spaghetti arms.
Just like, like, you know, one of those, like, when you pull into, like, I don't know, a vacuum cleaner dealership and they've got those big, like, one of them. I'm one of those inflatable,
wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men. So I just to see if I could do it, would try and be like, and choke you before you had your reflexes. And we would just be like,
yeah, just every single time straight for the set. I'm very lucky I don't have a very defined Adam's apple, because if I did, you would have crushed my windpipe. Like, well, there you go. Another thing we share in common.
So strange to look back on these times and be like, wow, friendship in the early 2010s was just straight up physical abuse.
Oh, absolutely. You know what, though? I feel like it's a very rare thing to find at that age, but really beyond then as well. But to find somebody of the other gender that you're comfortable enough with, that you can have that type of platonic friendship with. Like, I have no doubt that if I saw you right now, you'd probably still try to choke slam me. And I love that. Like, I'm all about it. You know, not in a weird way. If it was in a weird way, whatever way you want it to be honest.
The point is, it was always consensual.
Always has been, always will be.
But also, like, just such a fondness for you. And I said this before we started recording, that, like, I was so excited to speak to you because you're one of those people that I know, no matter what we're talking about, like, there's never going to be a moment of, like, dullness or silence or anything where I'm like, okay, so, like, I need to think. What am I going to talk about?
Yeah.
Like, we just run off and then suddenly it's like 7 hours later.
Yeah, right. I mean, if anything, the only downside to having a conversation between us is the sheer amount of editing work that's going to have to be done, to be honest, because,
but
I don't think we've ever struggled to find the words. Oh, absolutely.
So it's fine.
Absolutely.
And the only other bad thing that gets in the way is we're going to have to hold in our pee-pees and poo-poos. And you are drinking coffee.
I am. Okay, this is such a sidebar, but I want to get your opinion on it. I'm sorry.
Talk!
I am an impeccably lazy person to the
Amazing.
point that if I need to pee, right, I'll be like, I can't really be bothered. Like I will wait until critical mass, and only then will I be like, okay, I should go do something about this. And I've been called weird for that. But like, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm the same. And I think in a lot of things that I do, I'm not lazy. But I think one part of it for both of us is we're both very, like when we're focused on something, like I can't, I'm like, I need to get this done. Like I don't like doing things without finishing them. So I think there's that. And then secondly, when I was little, I figured out that holding in your pee feels good if you're have a. So I remember being little and just being like, I'm just going to wait. Nothing would ever happen, but that's a thing they don't tell young girls. Just hold in your pee.
How young?
Oh, like 9.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Young enough that I can't continue the conversation and the FBI is going to kick down my door. I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay. Sick.
Fun fact. Every time I've mentioned it to like a female friend of mine, they've been like, oh my God, I did that too. And I'm like, why is this not spoken about? Everyone does this.
Wow. That's not something that they went over during sex ed.
In sex ed, all we knew was that there was a hole and babies came out of it. There's no other anatomy we really learned about.
And banana condoms. I'll never forget, I'm going to omit names just for privacy and security, obviously. But I will never forget in year 8, mind you, for anyone who's paying attention, we were still at separate campuses at this point in time. So this is Taylor's Lake's only thing. During sex ed class, normally everyone's accustomed to the whole banana condom on the banana type of thing, right? Like that's how everyone does it. That's how everyone expects it. That's how Hollywood expects you to do it. Like the conversation always goes down like that.
It's right? Hollywood,
anyway,
baby.
So we're sitting around, round circle, year 8, and the lady who's running the class, can't remember her name, probably wasn't even a lady. I think she would have been early 20s, but you know, when you're 12, everyone's a lady, right? So she comes in and she's like, okay, so we're going to practice, how to put on a condom, and everyone's kind of getting G'd up. She reaches into this box, dude, and just goes, pulls out this like 12-inch synthetic dildo. And everyone was like, whoa. Anyway, one of the guys in class at that point in time had like a full-blown fit, which was like a medical thing, but no one realized. Everyone thought he was just reacting to the side of it being put on the table. And it was the most chaotic thing. And I don't know what you said that just spurred me to remember that, but sex ed, I can't not think of that scene in my mind. It's the most chaotic scene that I've ever been born witness to.
That's horrific. All right, so I believe it is time for some questions. All right, so let's begin with question 1. What did you want to be when you grew up? And why do you think that is?
I think I wanted to be a lot of things. So I'm going to limit my answer to this question to be like the first thing that I'm really like cognitively aware of that I wanted to be. I think it was a lawyer, to be honest. And to be fair, I wasn't one of those kids that like growing up, like preschool and like junior school and stuff like that was like, I want to be like, it was really open to me. And it wasn't until like middle school that I was like, yo, I think I want to be a lawyer. Not to get deep on question 1, but I really think for the most part, it was born of like societal expectations. Like I've always been a really good speaker and a good presenter and, not to toot my own horn, but like relatively charismatic as well. And so for me, it was always like, what's a good thing that I can apply those skills to? Oh, I want to be like a lawyer. And that kind of like stuck. And it's the type of thing as well that when you're a kid and, you pump your chest out, you feel self-important. It's like, I want to be a lawyer. Like you feel good saying it as well, It didn't last forever, obviously.
The societal stuff you're saying, it does make sense. Like, without you even saying all that, I was like, I can see that. I understand that.
For sure. And you know what? Like, I don't want to go too far into this because I know that I want to talk about it later. But like, especially as someone, like my parents are like unbelievably supportive and stuff as well. But coming from like an ethnic background as well, like you pick a good professional job, bro. Like you don't pick a creative art. Like a lawyer is a good job. A doctor is a good job. Like, I think that definitely played into it a little bit. As well when I was younger.
So much pressure.
Legit.
Next question is, what's your favorite thing about yourself?
This is a ridiculously hard question.
Yeah. I think it's harder. I've noticed all the males that I've asked, it seems harder for them to answer it, even though societally I feel like women are like taught to not like themselves more.
Right.
It's probably just that women have a lot more introspective conversations with their close friends than men do, probably.
And honestly, I think, and this is a gross generalization, but for the most part, I think it remains true. They're more prone to have that introspective dialogue with themselves. It's not really a thing that guys do, right? Where they like sit down and look themselves in the mirror in the eye and be like, what do I like about myself? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't happen. I think if I had to answer that though, I'll keep it outside of like all the creative stuff, all like, you know, my musicality or my creativity or like that stuff aside. I think probably one of my favorite things about myself is like my sensitivity, the fact that I'm happy and comfortable not to be like the manliest man in the room. Like I know who I am. And I think that gives me a great opportunity to make connections with people that you don't always get to make connections with myself that not a lot of guys get to. And I think it's reflective. Like I would say that about my friends as well. It's something that I love about all my friends. I surround myself with people who don't take themselves too seriously.
I love that. That's such a wonderful answer. And that's something
Thank you.
You should definitely be proud of. We all know, you know, everyone watching, this is a safe space. Vulnerability is key, baby. You got to be vulnerable. But like so societally not expected of men. So I think that's really great that you recognize the strength in that.
I've had this conversation with my friends recently as well about how there's this expectation that a guy has to be XYZ, right? And it's so liberating not to be the same way that there's an expectation that a woman has to be XYZ, and it's liberating like not to be. I have absolutely no idea where I was going to go with that, but I just feel like I needed to say that, bro. Like it's so like just be yourself, dude. Yeah. Be yourself. Especially like as a guy, I've really found so much strength to be taken from like platonic relationships with my female friends. And that's something that not a lot of guys are always open to, right? Like it's almost like they've got an objective when they're speaking to women, which I understand, like, because that expectation is placed on them as well. Like they're expected to bring something to the conversation. But I think being comfortable enough with yourself, especially when it comes to sensitivities and stuff like that, you don't have an agenda when you speak to anyone. And it just opens up like relationships for you in such a positive way.
Okay. Next question is, what's your favorite feeling? And so this can be physical or emotional.
I'm so glad that you said that because that was my biggest question. Can I cheat? Can I give you two, like one for an emotion and one?
Absolutely. Love that.
Emotionally, my favorite emotion, my favorite feeling, is nostalgia. 110%. My favorite feeling.
Chef's
Love
kiss.
It. So yeah, like so bittersweet. Like I love that about it as well. I love looking at everything with those rose tinted glasses on and romanticizing how things used to be and then feeling sad about how they're not like that anymore, but then feeling happy about nostalgia is just amazing. Love it. In terms of like a more physical feeling, and bear with me here, but flow state. I think anyone who does anything creative, probably even beyond that, bro, you can clean your room and be in flow state. But I think that like feeling of losing track of like time and sense and everything else and being fully dedicated to something and having that just like flow out of you without thinking critically and just like, that's the best feeling. That's the pocket that I try to get into every single time that I'm making music. Like when you know the fundamentals well enough that you can forget them and just work, that's such an empowering place to be in.
Such a dumb, funny thought, but it's true. I was like, that's kind of like how like I don't think about when I'm walking. I just walk.
But literally, right? I think that's the hardest part about like mastering anything. And I think everyone wants to be so good at everything so quickly. And I really do believe the key to being like good at anything is to get those fundamentals down to the point that you don't have to think about them, because when they're second nature, then everything that happens is experimentation. And only good things come from that.
And on what you were saying about the nostalgia, holy shit, also bear with me because this might sound sad as fuck. Sometimes I think one of my favorite feelings is loneliness, if that makes sense. But not kind of like the feeling of being in it and being like, this feels nostalgic, if that makes sense. And when you're feeling kind of lonely, you're like, hey, it's just me in here and it feels good and it feels bad. But I'm like, hey, we're having a great time and it sucks.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like a negative connotation doesn't, this is going to sound so counterintuitive, but like just because there's a negative connotation applied to it doesn't mean that it's a negative feeling, right? Like being lonely, it's like, oh, like I'm by myself, and it's so easy to get existential in that space, but also like it's just you. And there's something so nice about that as well.
Definitely.
I like loneliness as well. Wow, maybe we're just both incredibly depressive people. I don't know.
We need help.
Seriously, sheesh.
No, no,
Side
no,
note,
no.
I think very happy creative people tend to like, there's a big balance, right? Like you can't have one extreme without the other. And so like a lot of the happiest, funniest people that I know tend also to be some of the most introspective, melancholy people
Yeah,
that I
for
know.
sure. Okay, the next question is, what's your happy place?
My easy answer, my safe answer is creating music.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can say that confidently. Like any time where I get to disconnect from the outside world and just work on something, it doesn't matter what genre it is. It doesn't matter whether it's a YAAK thing or working for someone else. Like actually, you know what? I'm going to extend that. My happy place is any time that I get to be creative, even if it's not music. If I get to, something like this, I count as creative. Something like helping a friend write a show is creative. Working on music, like anytime that I get to flex that muscle, I'm totally at peace. There's something incredibly empowering in realizing that like using your creativity to any extent will funnel back into whatever you want that primary purpose to be. Like if you want to write and you take some time to play around on a keyboard and you're flexing that creative muscle, like you may not necessarily see the correlation between the two, but they feed into each other. Absolutely feed into each other.
And what you were saying about being away from the outside world, I think that is such a big part of it as well. I've noticed in trying to promote this podcast and the sketches that I've been making and just things so that I can have things more visible. I've been like, Jesus, just having a social media account and like doing the admin of like uploading videos and stuff is so draining and takes so much more time than people. Like I have a friend who's like a professional social media manager. She works 24/7 and it's because you can't turn that off. The internet never goes off.
No, exactly.
So much like looking at how other people are interacting with things. So I think it's really important what you said about not being around anyone else when you're doing these things.
For sure. Well, because that's the thing about social media, right? It's like not only am I competing against every other musician, or not only are you competing against any other person who's in the arena of comedy, I'm competing for that split second of attention time that I can get from you, which everybody else is competing for. I'm competing against other apps. I'm competing against your friends. I'm competing against so many different things just so that you can tune and be like, oh yeah, YAAK's music's pretty cool. Oh yeah, Ash is pretty funny. And then you go back into whatever else it was that you were doing. Like, and I know I'm guilty of doing the same thing. Like our attention spans are so small. I wish we were in a position or in a place where like, if the music was good enough, it would speak for itself. If the content's good enough, it speaks for itself and you're going to get where you want to get. But at the end of the day, it like doesn't work like that. And you're so right. Not only do you need to put time into like the social media side of things, like it's time, it's an investment, like it's hard work. There's a reason that people are social media managers and get paid a lot for it because it's a big job.
Okay, what's your favorite song to cry to?
Cheat answer, not a singular song, but it does actually kind of link into my previous answer. Anything from Frank Ocean's Nostalgia Ultra mixtape, slap it on. Just slap the whole project on and I'll be a mess by the end of it. Guaranteed.
Just have a sob. If there's one song that you can kind of, because with all of the answers of people answering this, I'm going to make a Spotify playlist with everyone's answered. Okay. What's just one that you could give as an example?
Do you know what's so funny is if I had to give you like a one song, it wouldn't even be one of the Frank Ocean songs. Now that I think about it, I think if I had to give you one from Frank, it would probably be either Strawberry Swing or We All Try. I think that is from Nostalgia, but also Hanging On by Active Child. Yeah, that's probably my number one pick.
Also, how funny is his name is Frank?
I know, so not sad.
No one ever thinks of him as Frank. Like it's Frank Ocean. You're like, oh yeah,
Frank
last thing you hear is Ocean, not Frank.
Frank. You've kind of like ruined him a little bit for me, but it's still Frank Ocean.
Like Bradley Cooper's name is Bradley, not Brad.
Bradley.
Okay, the next question is, who's someone you admire?
This is where like the multiple sides of me like conflict because there's so many different people that I admire for so many different things. You know what though? Ultimately, I admire them all for the same reason. I'll give you an example of one on each end, but someone like Childish Gambino or Tyler, the Creator, and then by the same token, someone like Elon Musk. And the reason that I really admire people like that is they've put themselves in a position where they can do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And they have people's respect and they have people's approval to do so. Like I look at someone like Tyler, the Creator, And when I first heard his music, it was aggressive, dude. It was angry music. It was dark music. And people loved him for that. Like he was, I'm not sure if you're going to have to censor this out, but like, remember when he did the collab with Vans and he literally nutted on a shoe and everyone was like, yeah, that's just Tyler. like what? But now he's out here doing Flower Boy stuff and singing songs and everyone's like, yep, that's just Tyler. That's what he does. Like, no worries. Someone like Elon Musk, it's like, we're launching rockets, SpaceX is a thing, Tesla's a thing, PayPal, like the fact that they can kind of go any direction that they want and have that liberation, I admire that so much.
Name his child, just a bunch of symbols.
And that's okay,
and that's
apparently. Okay.
Let's be real. No one's being like, that's normal. Everyone has been like, what's that about? But also everyone's like, it is classic him,
Right.
Okay,
That's so good.
What's some weird kid stuff you used to do?
Thinking back on it, I take pride in the fact that I'm not as weird as my two brothers are. Like their weird things definitely stand out more than mine do, I think. No, like my middle brother, God bless him, he's so sensible now, but he was a weird child. Like he did some weird things. Like I think every kid does though. Wait, what other people see as weird, maybe this is why I see my brothers as weird. What other people see as weird isn't weird to you. You know what I mean?
I kind of do, but also growing up, I 1,000% knew I was f***ing weird. But maybe that was me projecting, noticing everyone else's, like, I cared so much what everyone else thought that I was like, everyone thinks I'm weird, I'm f***ing weird. When
I was young, and when I mean young, I think 5-6 years old is where it maxed out because I got into trouble for it a couple of times. So embarrassing to say, but like when I was really young and I'd be like on the playground at like kindergarten or like primary school prep year 1, just vibing out, and I really needed to go to the toilet, I'd be like, bro, why go to the toilet? Like I'm a man of the elements. Like I'd just go pee in a bush. like I would wait until critical moment and then just go down the embankment and go in a bush. And I almost used to get a kick out of it, bro, all the time.
I love a drunk night out in the town, somewhere where there's bushes around, and being like, there's nowhere to pee, I guess I'm gonna have to squat in a bush.
It's liberating.
It's so liberating. It's so empowering. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I'll never forget though, one time, this is when I knew my jig was up. This is when I knew the days had come to an end. I'd made my way to what I thought was a pretty secluded. Another weird thing. Sorry. Another weird thing I used to do was pretend that I was like foraging for herbs and spices and like essentially just eat weeds. Like just pick like a 4-leaf clover up out of the ground and be like, whoa, we got us here a nutritious little one. And I just eat them. Weird. But one time I was on a said scavenger hunt and the call of nature, I needed to go. So, like young boys, they're not like holding their pants around there, but like it's just pants straight down, like just letting it go in the wind, you know what I mean? And someone who we ended up going to school with afterwards, to our multiple campus school in high school, saw me and didn't call out to me, went and dobbed on me. And then I got pulled into the principal's office and they were like, look, Jay, you can't do that, bro. you can't just pee on bushes in the playground, dude.
And then you were like, but can I keep eating the poison oak?
They were like, yeah.
Covered in rash. You're like, great, thanks. This is the last question, but I'm very excited to hear your answer. Do you think aliens are real?
I think from a probability standpoint, the chance that we're the only life out there is incredibly slim. I believe that there's something out there. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they are sentient green beings with big black eyes, like I don't know. I think it would be ridiculous to assume that we're the only thing that exists, but whether or not the stuff that's out there are star traveling, wanderers, I'd be open to the idea, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like, until I see proof of it, I can't say no, but I can't say conclusively, like, actually that's a lie. I can say yes, I just don't know to what extent.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah. It's like agnosticism, but towards aliens.
Do you know what? And I would say that generally speaking, that's the school of philosophy that I belong to. Mm-hmm. So like that makes sense that you say that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I hope so though.
Me too.
God, that'd be sick.
We share the exact same feelings about all of this. That's how I feel. I'm like, there's got to be something. Don't know what it is. Probably never will. In our lifetime, it's very likely that we'll never find out. Super psyched if there is though.
Right. I can't remember exactly who it was that said this, but I heard a perspective on, like the whole topic of, is life like precious? Like, are we the only things out there? I heard a perspective on this that was like really interesting. And it was basically like, until we observe some other form of like sentient, intelligent life, we can like assume that it's just us, right? Like, obviously, like to this capacity. And this person was basically saying, like, we're the only thing that we currently know of that can ask the questions of, what's the point of life? Why are we here? Is there anything else? And the fact that we're in that position gives us a certain sense of responsibility. Like, it does make life precious because we're the only thing that we currently know of that can ask those questions of the universe. And I thought that was like so poignant when I heard it.
That's very true. That's like gives me like a new level of appreciation.
Right. I totally agree. And then, I sit here binge watching TV shows for 8 hours. Like, this is what we've evolved for.
I appreciate my life.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is going to sound pessimistic. I don't think that there's necessarily anything. Oh, this does sound pessimistic, Jesus. But when everyone's like, it's a miracle that we're alive and it's a miracle that we are where we are and how we are. I agree with that to a certain extent, but I also think it's like the nature of life to exist and to survive. Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there had have been a way for things to evolve the way that they had, depending on obviously what your belief is, creation versus evolution or whatever, I'm not here to like fuel that debate, but I feel like life in of itself is just existing the way that it like wants to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, whether it was us or something else, life was going to exist to some capacity.
Yeah, for sure. I think about that a lot with like reincarnation and like past lives, and people talk about that.
For
I'm
sure.
like, yeah, maybe, but does that change the fact that right now I'm here and I'm like a privileged white person in a country with like socialized medicine and like these bad things that I also have as well? But I'm like, yeah, I think right now I'm just going to be like, these are some good things, and that's
For
cool.
sure. That's the way you got to be about it, right?
Amen,
Because
sis.
you're right. Amen, sister. I feel that.
I've been trying out this new thing where I say amen, sis, to anyone I know that isn't a cisgendered male. And then to males, I say amen, cisgendered male.
You know what? I have to give you props for this, because when I was on your Twitch stream last week, you said the same thing. So you're consistent. You're definitely trying to make this a thing. I
really
to
am.
give that to you.
But also, you can't assume that anyone is anything. So maybe I shouldn't do that.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I have this argument all the time. I'd be intrigued to get your opinion on this with people. I strongly believe that dude and bro are not attached to gender. Like, I don't like I've been told off before for like, hey, like, what's going on, guys being like a male or like a female thing. Like, you can call me cis. I'm about the energy attached to cis, not like, you know what I mean? Like, I got no issue with that.
Yeah, I think dude, and what would I also use? I do say guys a lot, and I'm trying not to. But anyway, this is all just like a little ploy for Jacob to plug my Twitch stream. So link.
Go and check it out.
Link in the description. It's whatever. But it is fun. It has been fun.
It was fun to watch. I'll tell you that much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you getting in on it.
BuzzFeed K quiz. That was pretty funny.
Also, are you wearing your own merch? I love that.
Yeah, I am. I was gonna wear the hoodie, but it was just too warm.
Anyone that's listening to and or watching this, go check the @YAAK Music Instagram. See if there's any merch available. Get some. And that's a message to myself too.
Some of the merch, man.
I think it's time for us to get into your topic. Take it away. I'm ready.
I've chosen a very broad topic to bring today. Basically what I'm saying is I'm happy to see where this conversation goes. The topic that I want to talk about at its core is creativity. Creativity specifically, is it something that you're born with? Is it something that can be taught? Is it something that can be trained? Is it something that can be applied to like non-creative fields? Because it's something that people ask me about a lot as well. And obviously you're in the creative field, so you're a great person to talk to about it. What do you think? Do you think that creativity is something that is innate, or do you think it's something that's learned?
I think it's a combination. Like, I think for myself, a lot of my creativity comes from being when I was a little kid being bored. Like, honestly, it comes from time when I would be outside in like, we had like a cubby house in the backyard and it had windows that popped open like that. And I would like play Macca's drive-through.
Right.
Our laundry door was always locked. And I imagined, I was like, there's someone this is a different house on the side of our house. There's a scary man that lives here. And I would like knock our laundry door. And I had like imaginary friends and I had this tree that this tree that was covered in spiders. And I would submerge my whole body inside the tree and be like, I'm going to make wishes to the fairies now. Like, That's
terrifying.
Yeah, it is. I was very like, I imagined a lot of stuff, and it all came from, I think, playing from a really young age and learning to play by myself. So I think, and like, even when I played with other people, my group of friends in like junior school, middle school, we would, every day at lunch, we would play Charmed. And so we would
like the old witch show?
Yeah, the witch show. We would watch an episode and then the next day come to school and reenact it and then redo it and do what we would have done differently. There was very rarely a moment for us to do anything but make stuff up in our heads.
Right.
So I think something that worries me for creativity for the future generations now is kids are never bored, you know? So I think if that is true, like if it isn't born in you, I think it does come from like learning to make things up for yourself.
Sure.
But I also do think there are some people that you meet and they just don't have it in them, whether they've done that or not. You know what I mean? Like I remember even being little and there being kids and you try to play with them in a creative way and they just didn't want to and didn't know how. It's like a combination where there are some people that just do not care for creative things, and that's fine. And then I think also as you grow and you learn what makes like what brings you like, oh, this is really fun for me, or this like gets you into that state of flow you were talking about. It's like a combination, and it's like a wave, baby.
You gotta ride the wave, baby. I agree with that. Like, to harken back to an earlier point, to how much of that do you think, because obviously you were talking about when you were younger and filling the void of boredism. I don't know. Society basically having to fit this mold of like, now you're going to grow up and you're going to do X, Y, Z. You're going to go to college or university. You're going to move into a professional field and we're going to think this particular type of way. Do you think that plays a part in shaping people's creativity at all?
I think it does, but it depends on what point in life it comes in, if that makes sense. Like for me, developmentally, we went to a school that like our performing arts specifically, because that's what kind of the only real, and I guess English were the things that kind of pushed me in the direction of what I wanted to do. I never felt starved creatively in that way. And we both did YABC, which is like out of school, like extracurricular musical theatre classes, basically. For sure. So like all these things that I constantly had something that I was doing that was like fostering this, even while we were still having to do normal classes and things like that. And then when I finished school, pretty immediately I started doing like community theatre. And then right after that I started doing improv. And it was only, which is a hot take, it was only when I moved to the US in 2017 for work that I felt that pressure, because my hierarchy of needs had changed. I needed to focus on having somewhere to live, having money come in, all these things. So I didn't actually have the time or energy to be doing a lot of creative stuff. And I was like the most miserable I've ever been. There was all this pressure, of course, the same thing where it was like, and I had a couple of jobs like in film, which I'm really grateful for. And I learned a lot. And one of them I really liked. One of them was horrible. But
that's a 50% strike rate.
That's not bad. Yeah. In the one that was good, it was really cool to be in a professional workspace and be like, I can see how creativity comes into this. Even in my very minor, not really creative role, I felt excited by being around it. Yes, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, definitely. Yeah, because I think like my standpoint on it is, I think it's innate to an extent. right? Because I think there's some people who are just fantastic, like critical thinkers and logical thinkers, and that's where their strengths lie. And honestly, society needs them as much as it needs, flamboyantly creative people. So I think there's like an element of that. But I'm so glad that you touched on what you did at the end, because in all my work, I established, I think it was last year, my own label so that I could publish everything and work with other people and stuff. And what I've found through working with other people, especially, is that creativity can definitely be fostered. Like if you surround yourself with other people who are creative, irrespective of the medium by which they create, if you surround yourself with other creative people, you can feel that energy. Like it rubs off on you. Even someone who's not, explicitly creative, it'll rub off. And you can definitely, I don't want to say learn, but you can, it's malleable. You can mold it a little bit if you surround yourself with it. I feel anyway.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's so interesting. I feel like I've brought this up in the podcast so many times, but obviously it's a very big building block of who I am. There's an episode of Lizzie McGuire where she figures out that she's really good at rhythmic gymnastics. And everyone's like, yeah, you're going to do it. You can be an Olympian. This is great. You've always kind of felt that you're boring. Now you have a thing. And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, I hate it though. I don't enjoy it. So what does that mean? And I've always been able to notice that in certain things. And when I feel that in myself, when I feel like I'm good at something, but I don't enjoy it, I'm immediately like, no, drop it. It's not for you. And speaking of people that kind of don't have that innate creativity, my mum, for example, she had the same Bruno Mars CD in her car for, not exaggerating, over 10 years and doesn't remember any of the lyrics of any of the songs. Wow. She doesn't remember the plot to any movie she's ever seen. Her brain is fine. This is not
Yeah.
Nothing's happening of her.
She's fine.
She's fine. But when I was younger, there was a mother's group in kids that I went to kinder with, a lot of them that we ended up going to school with, that did painting classes together. And so she painted all these little things around our house. And I remember once when I was 12, we had this tissue box. It was really beautifully painted. I was like, Mom, where did you get this? This is cool. She's like, oh, I made it. And I was like, what?
The woman who's been listening to the same Bruno Mars CD for 10 years.
Yeah. And she's like, eh. And I'm like, Mom, you're really good at this. Why did you stop doing this? She's like, I didn't like it. I don't know. I don't care. Why would I do it if I don't like it? Sometimes there are certain people that may even be good at creative things, but if you don't have that want to do it, then don't do it.
For sure. And I think it goes both ways as well, right? A couple of years ago now, I worked for one of the big banks in Australia, which
BBs.
Is so not a creative, the BBs, does not stand for big balls, wish that it did. And it's funny because that you wouldn't necessarily think of as a creative job, right? It's the same type of thing, but on the opposite end of the spectrum to your mom, I wouldn't say that I was bad at the job. I was pretty good at it, but I definitely felt hamstrung by the fact that I couldn't be creative in that role.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways as well.
Absolutely. And that's, okay, here we go. The societal expectations part of it is such a big thing because you being good at all the things that a lawyer would be good at, your question from before, doesn't mean you're yeah, I am passionate about and want to be a lawyer. My parents have said so many times, you'd be a great teacher. You'd be a great, you're good in customer service. Why don't you take on roles? And I'm because that doesn't make me happy.
Dude, you know what? Teaching's a really interesting one for me because I feel I would love to be a teacher, would love. I also feel teachers deserve more remuneration than they get. And I speak to my mum about this all the time, right? Is this thing, again, back to the same point of what society places values on. It's as a society, clearly we don't care, or we'd pay them more and we'd make it harder to become a teacher. But these are the people who are inspiring and teaching the upcoming generations. So I don't understand why they're not paid more, why we don't view that as a more esteemed role, especially in Australia, because I can't speak to other parts of the world. I know that it's not the same everywhere, but specifically where we are, it's not seen as glamorous, but it should be.
And you are right. It's not difficult at all to become a teacher. Well, I'm not saying you don't just walk into a school and you're no. I'm here to teach.
Yeah,
you get a degree, but that's not, I don't want to.
It's not the highest score to get into.
No.
We're not put it this way. We're not taking the creme de la creme of our high school graduates for it.
No. And it's one of those things as well that it can not only be bad for the person who is the teacher if they're not into it, but it can up all the students if you're
exactly.
How many bad teachers did we have? We had some
number.
great ones. We had some great teachers.
Yeah.
But we also had a few duds that like didn't want to be there, and it's just
at all
so obvious when that's the case.
Especially obvious once you grow up and you look back on it and you're like, they did not care at all. I'll shout out though, this is totally off topic, but just on topic for teacher, but not creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget when I was in year 12. So when I was in year 11, I didn't study English. So, you have to take an English subject. I chose English language, which is the scientific study of the English language. It's more on phonetics and the structure of the language and stuff.
Yeah.
And then moving into year 12, I was like, I want to switch to normal English because I'm not going to get a high enough score in English language. It doesn't scale enough, or like that's a whole nother chestnut, but I took normal English. And I remember doing my first SAC. And
by the way, SAC, he's not talking about like
yeah, school assessed coursework, people, not talking about,
going down on a SAC.
There. Yeah.
Great,
school assessed coursework is something you do throughout the year. And I remember, because I hadn't done English, so I didn't know how you were meant to structure your essays or whatever. It was really just a creative piece of writing for me. And my teacher, Miss Gertz, shout out, what a legend.
Queen.
She, absolute queen. Did you have her for lit?
No, I was not lucky enough to have her for lit, sadly.
Damn. Well, I remember she gave me a C. She's like, it was really good, but you needed to work on this. She's like, look, don't take this the wrong way. I'm going to give you an after school detention. And I was like, but I didn't fail. And she's like, I know that you didn't fail, but I'm giving you an after school detention. Mr. Laurie is on this day. And Mr. Laurie was someone who wrote like year 12 exams for the state. Like the guy was switched on, right? I think he wrote them in religion and something else.
Also, if anyone doesn't know, just for a mental image, this man looked like Gandalf.
Literally like Gandalf.
And had the spirit of as well. He was like a wise, but also a smart ass, like very funny, like sassy man.
Yeah, he was the best, bro. Like yeah, sassy Gandalf, like perfect way to put it. And I remember she said, I want you to take him out of school. He's going to be supervising it. And I want you to write an essay in that time and get him to mark it as well. And Mr. Laurie ripped me apart, like absolutely ripped me apart. And so did Miss Gertz, right? She gave me on after school for it. And I ended up dominating English in year 12. And it's only because of the effort by her. Mm-hmm. So like teachers are so important. Like the fact that she went above and beyond, bro. She didn't have to. Bless her soul.
Yeah, exactly.
I ain't religious, but bless her soul. Damn.
Hashtag me too. I just love using that out of context. But that's okay. This is the thing. And I'm going to talk about this because for a long time when I was living in the US, I used that in the way that I just used it. I'd say hashtag me too out of context. And I remember one person, an older woman, getting kind of pissed off at me when I did it. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I can understand that wouldn't be fun if you've been like a survivor of sexual assault. And I was like, I and many women have in whatever ways, like thankfully for me, it's never been anything too, insane.
Sinister.
Yeah. But everyone has. Catcalling counts. Anyway, I was like, I feel like this is the one time we get to like take this thing on and like we can use this as like, it's like a thing. And this woman was so pissed. And so I stopped saying it, but I'm bringing it back.
Here's the thing. Tell me the part just then in regards to the semantics of the phrasing of your hashtag me too, where you were incorrect.
None. The answer is 0.
0. Like you can use it however you want.
Thanks.
People
Thanks,
really
sis.
do be... Yeah, I love that I'm giving you permission to use it, not my place at all, but you can use it if you want.
Thank you. Oh, I just needed a straight white man to take, well, not white, but straight man.
Yeah, thank you. Dude, you know what's so funny? I had an interaction with someone this is a music thing. This is such a prevalent thing in the Australian scene, right? Is equal opportunity for all, which I ride with. So hard.
Hell yeah.
But it's equal opportunity at the expense of people who have previously had greater opportunity, right? And what I mean by that is at the moment, there's a massive push for artists from Indigenous backgrounds, which I love, LGBTIQ, or is it TQI?
I think as long as you've got all of them in there, both work, you know.
Which I'm all about, like all about as well. Color and obviously female artists as well, who are massively underrepresented. All those things, I feel there is so much room for more exposure to artists from those lanes, and so I'm all about it. But I had this interaction with someone like a year ago, and I remember talking to her, and she was like, "I'm like a really big fan of your music." Where she's a publicist, right? Massive fan of all your music, and I was like, "Oh, thank you so much." She's like, "I would love to do a write up on you or something, but you know, it's just tough." And I was like, "Oh, like, what's tough about it?" And she's like, "Oh, you know, just because you're like a white straight male, like we don't really cover that at the moment." And it's so funny because I only bring this up because you pulled yourself up on it before as well. There's almost like this thing that's like, "Oh, you're eloquent," and I can't clearly discern that you're ethnic, so you're just like white. And I had to be to her. I was like, "Oh yeah, you know, sometimes I forget that I'm first generation Australian and that my parents were both born overseas. Like I forget that all the time." And she was like shook. I don't even know how to eloquently tie a bow around that.
No, but
Like,
I know
yeah,
what you mean. And this is, we're slightly going off creativity, but I mean, we're not. We're still talking about it. I've been reading this book. I think I've brought it up on another episode, but I'm reading this book called Me and White Supremacy. It's like a workbook. And you just go through it and you just talk about all this stuff. And they talk about like just white privilege in general and how like in this case, you're like white passing. I mean, I've known you for over a decade, and I instinctively was like, "Yeah, you're white," and then I was like, "Wait, you dumb bitch, no, he's not."
Yeah.
And that's important to say and like acknowledge in those moments, because before you kind of told her you're wrong, lady.
Yeah, it's pretty blunt about that.
That was a moment where it's like the privilege of being white passing kind of came in and was like, well, you've had these opportunities before, you're white. But then there's also like, there's so much muddied water with that kind of stuff and especially, not especially in Australia, but in Australia we have such a unique, I think, and anyone from anywhere else, please tell me if I'm wrong and if your home is like this as well. But in Australia, even within different ethnicities from Europe or from the Middle East or from Africa or anywhere that's not here and not really, really white, you know. Well, I mean, Europe is really, really white. But
well, yeah.
But like even our parents' generation, like you said, your first generation, my parents were first generation. They experienced like harsh racism, and they are white. But compared to the Anglo-Saxon, you know, like British descent people, they didn't classify them that way. And it's interesting because like going to America, I really, for the first time, kind of understood like, oh yeah, I'm fully white.
Yeah.
Like I don't have any right to claim anything of any kind.
Yeah.
My family's Italian or Maltese. Like I'm fully white. And even if my grandparents and my parents experienced like some really racist things happen to them, they also were receiving a lot of like white passing
for sure
things. But you are someone who's actually not. So totally it's good to remind people of that.
Yeah, totally don't look like it though, right? So it flies under the radar. And you're right, it is totally sidetracking from the creativity aspect anyway, but I don't know why I felt the need to shit. How many white people you know with thick curls like that, bro?
Oh, they're so beautiful. You have such beautiful hair.
Thank you.
Why are you hiding it?
I appreciate that. Because isolation, I have not had a haircut in a very long time.
I've been cutting this myself, and it's so jagged.
Doing a fantastic job, though.
Thank you, but you are wrong. It's just it's all different lengths. Okay, so we're talking about race, getting topical. I was gonna say, I know why you brought it up, because you wanted to bring up your hot shit, and you get contacted by people like publicists, right?
What can I say? Yeah, not at all. Humble flex. It wasn't meant to be like that.
No, I'm kidding. I'm so happy for you that things like that, things that happen in your life. That's incredible.
Thank you, man. I mean, you know, it's one of those things you you work hard for them. So you take those opportunities where you can get them. And that's something that I'm really focusing on at the moment. You know what, this will help us get back onto creativity as well. This is something that I wanted to talk to you about. It's so funny. So like an emphasis of mine at the moment, now that we're fortunate enough to be in a position where restrictions are obviously easing up again, we're able to, you know, work with people again, specifically talking about musicians and stuff. Like I can get in a room with people again. There was an extended period of time where everything was kind of via correspondence. We'd hop on a Zoom call or something like that. And you can work, but it's different to working in the same space intuitively, like catching that vibe. I hate being like catching the vibe, but like catching that vibe and like really running with something. And I didn't realize how important community-based creativity was. And what I mean by that is like going out and just being like inspired by the world around you, right? Like, because you've been locked away for so long. It's kind of like, how am I meant to draw inspiration from my life and then put that into art when my life has been within these four walls for the past 9 months? What am I drawing from? To
bring it back to improv, because if you're in a cult, you got to talk about it. A lot of people like shit on it sometimes, which I get. It is really lame and it is a cult. Like everything everyone says about it, yes. And that was an improv bit that maybe three people will get.
Like, because you're giving someone else an opportunity to go on type of thing. You're not killing the scene.
Mm-hmm. Now that's creativity. You knew what I was talking about and you've never even heard of it. When I was living in LA, that was a big part of like, people pay so much money to do these improv classes. And a lot of people are like, why the f*** would you do that? Like you pay like $400, $500 to be in a room with people 3 hours a week for 8 weeks. That's insane. Why are you spending, like, just hang out with these people? And especially in that city, it's a big city that a lot of people, creative people especially, move to do these things. You don't know anyone. You want to meet people who like the things that you like. You got to put yourself in those positions where you do those things. And I found that like I said, a lot of the time that I was there creatively, I was really like miserable. But when you're in those spaces where you're working with others and you're physically like able to feed off each other's energy, it's like nothing else. Like it's, and same with stand up. And when I was living there, I went to comedy shows every week, like 1 or 2 a week minimum, like because it feels comedy there is so good. So good. I miss it so much. I can't believe how many things I just won't get to see again for a long time.
Well, I mean, asterisk, not forever, just for a bit, right?
Yeah, just for a bit. And also, I'd rather hundreds of thousands of people not die in the country where I am, so.
Dude, so true. So true. We're very fortunate in that regards, like that our cases are so low at the moment. Mm-hmm. You know, that's one thing I got to say, shout out. I'm not entirely sure when this will come out, but hopefully it's still relevant to an extent. Like, you know, a lot of people were very disenfranchised about how harsh the lockdowns were in Victoria, and I totally understand. And they were incredibly intense. But by the same token, the fact that we're kind of on, you know, the other end to a certain extent, the fact that there's single digit cases, like incredible. Yeah. So incredible at the moment. So proud of all of us Victorians.
Me too. Claps for us.
Seriously.
Claps and a burp. Excuse me.
I got nothing.
I've always got one.
It's impressive. Do you put that down on your CV? Because I would.
Maybe I should.
Can burp on cue.
Can burp on cue. Can shit pants if you give me coffee.
Oh, okay, question for you. I'm so sorry for the editing job that you're going to have to do here.
No, I love it.
If you could pick any carbohydrate to exist, so let's say you pick one, all the others cease to exist. What are you picking?
So what do we have? We've got like bread, pasta.
Bread, pasta. I'm gonna bundle in like potatoes in there. Like that's definitely like a straight carb type of thing. Rice.
Okay, I feel like potatoes are the most versatile because you can make pasta out of potatoes. You can make chippies. You can make like baked goods with potatoes.
That's true, you can.
But also I'm kind of like, I love cake.
Like wheat goes pretty hard, bro.
If whatever I choose has no effect on me physically.
Yeah, let's say that.
Then potatoes. I think I was gonna say wheat, but just chips.
You can't say the only thing that potatoes are missing, which you can only get through gluten, I feel, is elasticity.
You don't need elasticity in a good HSP. That's the thing. That's all I'm
Now
thinking
you're
about.
talking. Now you're talking to the Arab in me, bro. You mentioned HSP, extra garlic sauce, cuz. I mean, I'm in.
To wrap up creativity,
Sure.
what do you think is the most important thing, the important lesson you have learned throughout fostering your creativity? Like, what's something, if there's someone out there who's watching this who is creative or wants to be creative or wants to be better at it, what's something that you feel you have learned through being creative?
Adaptability isn't the right word, but definitely like being open and adaptable. Like, for example, I've made it an effort now to collaborate with as many people as I can. And my mindset when I'm collaborating on music, and I say this to all, like everyone that I work with as well, if I send you an idea and you like the snare drum and that's the only thing that you like, let me know. You need to be open and accepting of whatever happens, because I feel like that's when the good stuff happens, right? Like, because that's the whole point of like, specifically with like collaborating, but I think that's the real strength like of collaborating, is the way that it enhances your own creativity. Is like the moment you get stuck to like a rigid set of thinking or ways, you've ruined yourself. You know, like it's so counterintuitive to what you're trying to do. You always need to be willing to expand your horizons, to challenge yourself, to do something different. And that's why, to the previous point, I know that we spoke about this a little bit earlier, like sometimes I'm like, I want to work on music, and all I want to work on is music. And one of my friends is writing a show at the moment, and if he's like, yo, do you mind like helping me out with the scene? It's like, it's so easy to be like, yeah, but that's not what I'm doing. That's not how I want to be working. So like, I'm not going to do it. But I'll go and work with them for like an hour and a half and feel so much more energized to come back and do music, like, or whatever it is. And so I think it's so important just being open and willing and able to do whatever.
I love that. That's excellent advice, an excellent answer. And now we've come to the end, even though, let's be real, we could just speak till the sun is down.
Seriously, and then some. Until
we've both just like fall asleep. I was trying to figure out, how could I fall asleep on this? Like,
that's cute.
Thank you. It's a little
so chic of you.
So where can the people out there find everything that you're doing? And do you have anything current or new or on the horizon that you want to plug?
Across socials, my handle is just at YAAK, YAAK music. Doesn't matter which medium you're on, you'll find me there. I'm currently working on wrapping up a song with Victorian-based rapper Z Lewis. We got a music video coming for that. Now that we're finishing up with Isolation, we're going to get on recording that, filming that ASAP. So that'll be out hopefully within the next month or two. Other than that, I know that I've worked with Jazz a lot previously, who was on some of my EPs. We're finishing a project for her as well. So there's going to be a lot of new YAAK material. Jazz's project will be her own, just like produced by me. But for anyone who is looking for that like YAAK hit, hopefully the next month or so, you'll get a video and a sick song as well, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, very exciting. And like, I think I said this to you a few weeks ago even. I was like, people out there, my music taste it is broad, I will say that, but I think what I put out there is like Jonas Brothers, that's it. So when I'm listening to anything else, people are like, oh, this is new. And I'm like, no, bitch, just keep it in here. But anyway, your style of music is truly something that I don't listen to often. But every time you release a new track, you believe I'm listening to that thing on repeat. It gets always in such a good mood. Even like the more melancholic songs.
Yes, there's definitely some that are like that.
They make you feel, baby. And that's the main thing. Love it.
Well, they make me feel. I wouldn't put anything out that doesn't make me feel, like that's really important to me. And as long as I feel passionately about something, I don't really care what it is. I mean, I can't see myself releasing any country folk albums anytime soon. But if ever there comes a time that I'm creatively inspired by that, you better believe that I'm going to release it.
I hope that day comes. Somehow, I mean, I don't listen to country folk, but I will absolutely if you make it. Well, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, check out Jacob's page, YAAK Music. And also, if you want to follow me on anything... Go ahead. I'm at Ashley Crap App.
You know you want to.
Exactly. On everything we got Instagram, we got Twitter, we got TikToks. I'm 12. We got Twitch. I'm streaming every Monday, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Daytime, and every Thursday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Daytime. So come along, jump in the chat. Jacob has before.
It's worth your while. Chat. It's really entertaining.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A mishmash of random shit. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like. Give us a subscribe.
Thumbs up.
Go in the comments and be like,
wow, they're both so pretty and handsome.
Whoa, yeah. Wow, Ashley, your fringe looks great. Jacob, your hair is beautiful. Talk to us about our hair. Honestly, that's what we want. Look at those girls.
Boost up our confidence.
Yeah, we need it.
We need it. Please. Please.
Thank you for being here, for listening and watching. And I'll be in your ear holes next week. Stay hydrated. Stay safe. Ciao.
Bye.